Sure. So consistency, I would say, is probably my number one superpower. Although I know it's not an exciting one all the time. It's like, yeah, gee, that's not very exciting. Consistency. But with my podcast, Natural Born Coaches, we're up to, as of today, I think 614 episodes. Just started it and just focus on putting out the best quality show that I could. Daily emails, I've been doing those since April 2016. Haven't missed a day there yet. So I'm showing up every day. And what's happening is people, they may not be ready to buy today, but I say they're stalking me in a good way. People will often hire me or they'll buy from me and they're like, Mark, I've been following your stuff for a couple of years now, or it could be 6 months, could be 4 years, whatever. And then they're ready because I keep showing up and making offers every single day. And when they're ready to go, they will pull the trigger, open their wallet and invest. If I was only showing up occasionally, sporadically, then that wouldn't happen. And the mistake I find a lot of coaches make is they forget that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So they put all this effort in for like a week or a month, and then they get burnt out, they get tired, and they take time off. And it just doesn't work that way. I would much rather use, like, Darren Hardy talks about in the compound effect, where you do small actions every single day. It adds up over time.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Today we have Marc Mawhinney. Marc is the coach's coach, serial entrepreneur, and founder of Natural Born Coaches. He's also the host of the Natural Born Coaches podcast, and we're very pleased to have him on the show. How you doing, Marc, and welcome.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Dwayne.
I appreciate it. Well, for those who are not familiar with you, would you mind kind of going about a little about your background? How did you guys start in the coaching business?
Sure. So yeah, I've been coaching since 2014. But my background is actually in real estate, so it's funny, you know all about real estate. So I did that throughout my 20s for about a decade, and had a great time with it. But I built up a business and then built it up to about 100 agents and employees, a couple different offices, and then everything collapsed. And to make a long story short, that's what eventually led to coaching. I didn't know anything about coaches before that was in real estate. I'd never hired a coach or anything. I had to hire several coaches to get me back on my feet and get rolling again. So when in 2014 I was ready to get back into business, I thought, you know what, burnout from real estate, what can I do? And I thought this coaching thing's interesting because I've seen it firsthand what it can do. And that's how I started my business. And here we are today.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely benefited from coaching. I came from a collegiate background in basketball and, of course, different sports. So kind of getting used to that. And in every business that I started, especially in the real estate, I ended up finding the coach to help me put me over to that level, learn from their mistakes. They can help you save money, and avoid things that can kind of make it costly for you. So as far as people that's kind of getting into kind of coaching, because I have different listeners from all different backgrounds of business. And they're usually, when they talk about like the help client, because they want to help people. But the main thing is getting a focus, a niche. Can you kind of help us, give us some tips on, why is it important, and give us some tips on how to become and get a niche?
Well, one of the challenges that coaches have often when they start is they go too wide and they want to appeal to every single person on the planet. There's 7.5 billion people on the planet. You don't need to work with very many of them to have a successful business. But a lot of coaches start off very general. And I know I get crapped on sometimes when I say this, because when I say you have to choose a niche, people say, well, I know so-and-so and they don't have a niche and they're a successful coach. I'm not saying that there's no coaches who are doing well without a niche, but it is much easier if you can narrow it down with it. So I think I was mentioning to you just before we recorded, one of my clients is a real estate investment coach who's in Saskatchewan. And for her, she's very clear on who she's helping. She's not going out there saying, I'm a business coach or I'm a life coach. She's very clear with that type of person, and she attracts them to her because she's clear on it. So I think it's really important to be able to answer the question. If I said to you, what do you do, Dwayne, that you're able to spit that out clearly, concisely in one sentence, and I instantly know what it is that you do. So mine is I help coaches get more clients without paid advertising. very simple. It's organic. It's not a 5-minute long speech and rambling saying what I do. Right. So definitely narrow it down and makes it much easier.
Yeah. How about kind of like developing your message? I know you had mentioned like particularly a niche, so you can be able to kind of tell them your story and stuff. But as far as, do you help people kind of develop their story and like their message for their audience?
I do. Now, that being said, I'll put an asterisk on it. At the end of the day, the coach has to come up with their own message. So I find a lot of times new coaches want this template. They want everything done for them. Okay, tell me, Mark, in 100 words or a 30-second answer, how can I have a successful business? And I say it's not as easy as that. There's a lot more to it. When it comes to your message, you're probably not going to have it figured out day one right out of the gate. It's going to take some time getting out in front of your target clients and working it out. So the way that I view it is it's kind of like, your favorite sitcoms that are on TV that have been on for 6 or 8 seasons, like The Big Bang Theory or Seinfeld or any of those shows, Friends. When you compare them season 6 or 8 compared to season 1 doesn't sound anything like them, right? Because they haven't worked out their voice. Simpsons are the same way. Homer sounds ridiculous in season 1 30 years ago on The Simpsons and all that. So it takes a little bit of time to get your voice and find your footing, but then you're going to find it and you'll develop your message. Just it takes that consistent effort every single day, getting out there and working through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just kind of speaking on the consistency, that's something that's very impressive about you, is that you're always consistently, I've done over 500 podcast episodes and interview hundreds of people. You're speaking and doing all these different engagements. Can you talk about the importance of kind of the consistency and then how to kind of develop a habit or a system to help you kind of, get that started?
Sure. So consistency, I would say, is probably my number one superpower. Although I know it's not an exciting one all the time. It's like, that's not very exciting. Consistency. But with my podcast, Natural Born Coaches, we're up to, as of today, I think 614 episodes. Just started it and just focus on putting out the best quality show that I could. Daily emails, I've been doing those since April 2016. Haven't missed a day there yet. So I'm showing up every day. And what's happening is people, they may not be ready to buy today, but I say they're stalking me in a good way. People will often hire me or they'll buy from me and they're like, Mark, I've been following your stuff for a couple of years now, or it could be 6 months, could be 4 years, whatever. And then they're ready because I keep showing up and making offers every single day. And when they're ready to go, they will pull the trigger, open their wallet and invest. If I was only showing up occasionally, sporadically, then that wouldn't happen. And the mistake I find a lot of coaches make is they forget that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So they put all this effort in for like a week or a month, and then they get burnt out, they get tired, and they take time off. And it just doesn't work that way. I would much rather use, like, Darren Hardy talks about in the compound effect, where you do small actions every single day. It adds up over time.
So how do you mentioned that gentleman there, like how do you kind of avoid the burnout? Because like I said, everyone wants to obviously have the end result of, building a business, helping people, but occasionally when you kind of run out, you get really excited and maybe the momentum kind of diminish. Like how do you kind of keep that going?
Well, you'll appreciate this being in the real estate world, but where I spent so many years in real estate, this is a vacation for me, even though I work a lot of hours for coaching. But real estate's like, I was a real estate agent and then a broker, and you're on the road from early morning till late at night. Your phone's going constantly. You're working 7 days a week, 110, 120 hours a week. And it's not great for work-life balance. So people look now and they say, oh my God, you must be working a lot, Mark. And I enjoy working. I definitely have workaholic tendencies, but I'm like, no, actually I get more balance here now with coaching than I ever did with real estate. But I'm smart about it too. So with my content creation, I do things like batching my content. So with my daily emails, I'm not sitting down in front of the laptop 15 minutes before it's set to go out that morning to work on that email. I'm scheduling out. I'm usually a couple weeks ahead in emails. Same thing goes with podcast episodes. I like to stay a month or 2 months ahead for those and so on, because life will get in the way. Something could pop up and then all of a sudden you could be thrown off course. So I've gotten smart with how I create my content. If I tried to do it without batching, it would be a lot more difficult.
Yeah, that's definitely a big tip there. I have another real estate associate that I work with, and he's doing daily emails. And that's one of the questions I said, like, how do you do it? And he's like, I'm doing like 2-3 months ahead. So he's like, constantly writing, having new stuff out. And, based off of there's some new things that happen and he wants to remain relevant. If something come in the news, and he'll make a little tweak, but for the most part, like everything, he's putting all that work ahead of time. That's exactly what you're saying.
That's what I do too. So if I wanted to do an email about something like that just happened, let's say there's a zombie invasion today or something like that, I can unschedule tomorrow's email, push it back. And so I don't stay like a year ahead or anything crazy like that, but it is good to stay a few weeks ahead. A good example why that's important. Last fall, my father got rushed into the hospital unexpectedly, and he was in the hospital for, a month or so. Now, luckily, he came out of it. He's back home and he's doing well. But for a few weeks there, I was traveling back and forth because he lives about an hour and a half away. And I was living on the road and hotels and back and forth. And if I didn't have my emails scheduled out and just like blog posts, I'm sure my daily streak would have been broken there because everything going on with life. So life will pop up. It could be your kids, could be your spouse, could be your parents, whatever. And you don't want to be blindsided by that.
That's a great tip. And the one thing that I also wanted to mention too is kind of a little bit different is that I've been listening to a lot of your podcast interviews and your different appearances. I noticed that you have you're very funny, has a lot of charisma about you when you're speaking. It's very entertaining. Is that something that you learn over time as you just kind of just been practicing, or is there some type of skills that you learn over to become more charismatic? Because with that, it attracts more clients and people to become to trust and like you.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I hear charismatic, a lot of times I think of, like, I'm not like a Brendan Bouchard, with someone like that that's like a hyena hopped up in Red Bull. He's bouncing all around, or Gary Vaynerchuk or whatever. I have a very dry sense of humor. And my son, I have an 11-year-old son. He'll roll his eyes at some of the dad jokes I do and the puns and stuff. But I know this sounds very cliche. I just be myself. And it sounds like a Hallmark card, I know, but I think that's a better way to do it. I don't try to copy an influencer. Like, there's people I follow, there's people I've learned from, but I don't try to talk like a Tony Robbins or a Les Brown or Brendan Bouchard. And I see a lot of people in the coaching world do that. Marie Forleo, half the female coaches talk like Marie Forleo. It's like she has a factory churning them out. And, the way I say it is just be yourself. You put your own spin on it, and then be so good that you get people trying to copy you, mimic you. And I think that's a better way to do it.
Good tip. Yeah, you had mentioned as far as like you're doing the daily emails to getting clients and new business. Is there any other stuff that you do consistently to bring in new business?
Yeah. So I have what I call 3 pillars, and they're the things that I do to get business. Now there's other things, but these are the big 3 I focus on. One of them is podcasting. So that's my show. I have a podcast and a daily Alexa flash briefing, a 1-minute flash briefing. So there's podcasting on both sides of the mic, my shows, and then going on to shows like this. Another pillar is the daily emails, which you've mentioned. So I'm consistent with those. And then finally, there's my Facebook group. So Facebook and the Facebook group, I'm in there every day. There's thousands of people in that Facebook group, and I focus on that too. So if I'm doing those 3 things, I know I'm in good shape if I'm doing them consistently. So I'm not trying to do 77 different things and not doing any of them really well. I'm focusing on a few things that I enjoy doing and that get me clients and business, and then I focus on those.
As far as the daily flash and the podcast, so are you also producing podcast interviews, or are you talking for a topic and also a daily flash, or is it like 2 separate things?
Well, so for Natural Born Coaches, it's a weekly show, mostly interview based. There's the odd solo show in there, 30 minutes. The daily flash briefing is called the Marc Mawhinney Minute. And with that, that's a 1-minute solo, me talking about whatever. And there's another example of batching. I'll sit down on a Saturday afternoon. I'll take 3 hours or 2 hours and do a month's worth of flash briefings and then schedule them in. So I'm not sitting down every day and doing a 1-minute flash briefing, recording it, getting it out there. I wouldn't be able to stick with the daily format that way.
Yeah, that's very, very good advice there. As far as kind of like your typical day, I know that you're very consistent on getting different stuff, projects, and work with new clients. But what's kind of like a typical day for you that someone can kind of mimic to kind of help on their own journey?
Yeah, so generally speaking, I split my day into 3 portions. So, well, first off, when I wake up, that first part of the morning is my time. So I like to read. I like to journal. I say I don't. I will check the phone quickly, make sure the world didn't end the night before or something. Nothing urgent, but I don't sit and play on Facebook or email or whatever. I like to read and have a good hour in the morning for that right away. And then if the days I go to the gym, I go to the gym. But basically speaking, the morning is set for creation time. So roughly 9 o'clock till noon is just creating. And because that's when I create my best. I do some creation work late at night and stuff, but I'm not on the top of my game. I'm not a midnight owl, that's going to be out there burning the midnight oil and creating at midnight. I'm an early riser and I do better in the mornings. So morning is creation time. Afternoon is when I do things like my coaching sessions or interviews like this is in the afternoon. And then my evenings, my time. So I don't generally book calls in the evenings. Now I could do work. I could catch up on work, respond to emails. Generally speaking, I'll respond to emails and stuff, or I'll do social things myself. Last night I got out to see a movie with my brother in the evening. So that's how I like to do it. Creation, then calls, and then my own time in the evening. Now, if you're more creative at night, I would say flip it around. Work late at night whenever you're on top of your game. Maybe you sleep in a little bit and you can tweak it around. But that's how I do it.
Is that something that you kind of played around with over the years, or was any books that kind of inspired you, or people that you kind of mimicked to say and then kind of worked it into your own?
Well, one thing I did when I got out of real estate and when I started coaching, I thought, you know what, I'm going to create the business that I want, the schedule that I want, because my issue with real estate was I never felt like I was in control of my schedule. I was just running nonstop all day long. The phone would ring, it'd be a client, and you'd be running out, showing houses, listing houses at all hours. One thing I do with coaching, and I'm really clear on, is no evening calls unless it's the rare case. There could be something. If it's let's say, for example, someone in Australia, the timelines don't work out if I say, no, we got to talk in the middle of the day. So I don't do calls, though, in the evening. And the weekends I keep to recharge, to read, spend time with my little guy when I have him, and so on. I found that you can get a lot done if you're working when you're supposed to be working, and then you can play when you want to play. But the problem is most coaches and online entrepreneurs mix the two up. So they're not as productive as they should be when they're working. And then when they're supposed to be playing, they're checking their phone and doing that as well. So to answer your question about books, I've read a couple good books about it. There's The One Thing. That's, Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, I believe. And another book is How to Break Up with Your Phone. And I can't recall the woman's name who wrote it, but she wrote a really good book talking about phone addiction, because everybody has smartphone addiction nowadays. And she gave some really good tips there to break the chains of phone addiction.
Very cool. As far as I know you have a couple programs, a little coaching program. Can you kind of go over a little bit about what each of them provides?
Yeah, so I'm not one of these guys that has 150 offerings. Even today I can fit my offerings on a little yellow sticky note. So my main offering is called 10 Clients in 90 Days. That's my flagship program. 12 weeks. It's the program I wish I had when I started coaching. So that's my baby. I love all my programs, but that's one I focus on, 10 Clients in 90 Days. We talked about daily emails. I have a digital program for daily emails called the Daily Email System. It's exactly how I use daily emails. I write them, monetize them, and so on. And that's called the Daily Email System. So those are two big ones I focus a lot on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mentioned you have a 11-year-old. Is there anything that you're most grateful for?
That's going to sound bad because I would have been happy if it was a daughter, obviously, but I was very happy I had a son. So I like superheroes. I like, I get to relive my childhood with a lot of the stuff that I played with as a boy, now with him, with things like superheroes, action figures, video games, and so on. So I know I could have done that if I'd had a daughter as well. But one thing that I'm really grateful for with him is he's been a really good motivation, because when I went through my business closure, he was only a little over 2 years old when that all happened. And having a 2-year-old son when everything collapses means that you can't lay in bed all day long feeling sorry for yourself, with the curtains closed and a bottle of Jack Daniels or something. You got to get out there and you got to put food on the table. So I'm grateful for him. I say he's my number one motivation, and he kept me going at what could have been a very dark time. It was a challenging time, but it could have been a lot worse. but I just kept going because I had him. So I laugh when I hear a lot of entrepreneurs will bash parenthood and say that it holds you back if you're an entrepreneur with kids. And I say, no, it's actually the best motivation that you can have if you have a kid.
Oh yeah, definitely agree. I got 2 little ones. I constructed a business where I work from home. I see them every day. We eat breakfast and stuff, and it's like it just gives you that pride to make sure that you provide for them and make sure that they have a good future and stuff.
Yeah, you got a set of eyeballs watching you all the time. In your case, 2 sets of eyeballs.
Exactly. But on top of that, we had talked a little bit about pre-show that that you have a system that possibly for our listeners that you can give us maybe a access to that or information on that.
Yeah, sure thing. So we were talking about daily emails, I think. I know we chatted about a few things, but yeah, with the daily email system, I'll give you the link so you can throw it on the show notes page. But what was happening was I was getting all these people asking me questions because they saw me emailing daily starting in 2016. And they said, how do you do it? And finally, I got asked the question so much, I said, you know what, I'm just going to create a program. I can direct people to it and I can make money from it. So I'm an unapologetic capitalist. So I said, I like making money. I'll send them there. It's much easier because you can't answer in a short little email or Facebook message. Here's how you monetize daily emails. So that program is focusing on how do you write the emails, which is very important. How do you sell in those emails? How do you grow your list and so on? It's called the daily email system. So I will get you the link and you can throw that up on the page.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate it. You gave us a lot of good information. Like I said, look up to you as far as like your consistency and like I said, your messaging and stuff like that is awesome. You gave a lot of value to our listeners and look forward to connecting with you soon. Have a great day.
Thanks, Dwaine.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or the listening platform of your choice. Also, please check us out at DwaineLClarke.com, as well as find us on Facebook for more useful content and resources.